I'm Sean Yao and this is One News Now. Two soldiers who were supposed to help in the search for the missing Cessna plane in Albay were gunned down in Barangay Cotmon in Camalig. The soldiers were killed while shopping for supplies at around 7 o'clock this morning. Authorities have yet to identify the gunmen. The fatalities were part of the team looking for the Cessna 340 plane that went missing on Saturday. Debris of the aircraft carrying 4 people has supposedly been spotted near the Bayon volcano. Meantime, the search and rescue operation for the missing Cessna in Albay has been called off, at least temporarily. In a briefing, Camalig Albay Mayor Carlos Erwin Baldo said that this is because of the lack of support from the national government. He also apologized to the families of the plane's passengers.
Masakit man po doon sa mga pamilya kasi nararamdaman ko din po yun. Sensya na po, ang desisyon ko muna, i-call off muna ang operation natin. Hinihintay din po naman natin yung kuha ng EDC na nirenta nila ng chopper kung anong magiging resulta bukas. Hinihintay ko din kung kanino ko ito turn over itong responsibilidad in a higher level. Or hinihintay ko din po, utusan kami nang galing sa taas na i-proceed namin.
And PHIVOLCS has some recommendations should search and rescue teams wish to continue operations near the Mayon volcano. PHIVOLCS was reacting to reports that it gave permission for rescuers to enter the permanent danger zone where the debris of the Cessna 340 plane supposedly were found. While the PHIVOLCS did greenlight the efforts, they clarified that it's still up to rescuers to decide whether or not to push through with the mission.
So ang PHIVOLCS po now, dahil yung Mayon is at alert level 2, ang recommendation namin, as always naman po, is yung huwag papasok sa 6-kilometer permanent danger zone. Now, yung implementation po niyan, kung magpapapasok o hindi, depends on yung authority na niyan is nasa local government unit. Yun po yung and kung magkakaroon naman ng exception, nasa kanila po yun.
PHIVOLCS added that they can only provide rescue teams with warnings about the possible hazards inside the danger zone.
Medyo yung mga slope, pwede magkaroon ng mga rockfalls, mga landslides, and madulas. Now, yung pagsuot naman ng yung danger naman ng yung volcanic gases, pagdating sa Mayon, very minimal yan. At that altitude, mahangin naman. So, madali naman mag-dissipate yun, yung volcanic gases. Pero still, siguro, pwede silang magdala ng mga gas masks.
And the Civil Aviation Authority of the Philippines assured that Cessna planes are still a safe means of transport. In an interview with Sa Totoo Lang, CAAP spokesperson Eric Apolonio said that banning Cessna planes or a total ban on Cessna planes is highly unlikely, as he vouched for their airworthiness. Apolonio's remark comes after 2 Cessna aircraft went missing in less than 1 month. One Cessna 206 in Isabela on January 24 and a Cessna 340 in Albay on February 18. Still, the CAAP spokesperson insisted that chances of Cessna plane crashes are low.
Sa kaso po sa mga commercial airlines or commercial aircraft, medyo very remote kung mangyari yung ganong ruling. Lalo ng una, kamukha ng Cessna, maraming may-ari niyan at mga flying school ginagamit. Kung pahihinto naman natin, lahat maapektuhan just because of 2 cases. And unang-una, pangalawa po, yung still safe to fly. Yan ang sinasabi namin because ang data or impormasyon para ma-discrasya ka sa aircraft, sa air accident is 1 in 11 million. Whereas kung ma-discrasya ka sa kalye, is 1 in 5,000 lang.
We're gonna pause for a quick break, but One News Now will be back with more stories after that. Stay with us. You're still watching One News Now. I'm Sean Yao. U.S. President Joe Biden made an unannounced visit to Kiev on Monday, promising to stand with the Ukraine for as long as it takes. The trip was timed to upstage the Kremlin ahead of the one-year anniversary of Russia's invasion, or one day before Putin was due to deliver a major address. Biden promised new military aid for the Ukraine worth $500 million. He said that additional sanctions would also be announced this week against the Russian elite and oligarchs. Officials in Washington and Moscow notified Russia of Biden's visit to avoid the risk of an attack on Kiev while the American president is there.
Putin thought Ukraine was weak and the West was divided. And he's counting on us not sticking together. He was counting on the inability to keep NATO united. He was counting on us not to be able to bring in others on the side of Ukraine. He thought he could outlast us. I don't think he's thinking that right now. But he's just been plain wrong. Plain wrong. And 1 year later, the evidence is right here in this room. We stand here together.
For his part, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky said that he and Biden talked about long-range weapons and other weapons that the United States has not supplied the Ukraine with before. But Zelensky did not detail the new commitments.
We can and we must take this year, 2023, the year of victory. And I want to emphasize that this unprovoked and criminal Russian war against Ukraine, the whole of Europe, and the democratic world must end with the clearing of all Ukrainian land from Russian occupation and firm guarantees of long-term security for both our country and the whole Europe and the whole world.
And that's how long we're going to be with you, Mr. President, for as long as it takes.
We'll do it.
Thank you.
Meanwhile, China's top diplomat Wang Yi is set to visit Moscow in the coming days after floating a fresh peace proposal to help end the tensions in the Ukraine. Before that, China's Xinhua news agency published an article that laid out Beijing's sweeping view of how the U.S. misbehaves on the world stage. Zhang Liu reports on Bloomberg Television.
Also, China seems to be trying to position itself as maybe a broker, a global statesman in this whole Ukraine war. Is there any indication here that their support for Moscow is wavering?
I'm not sure that the support is wavering. We haven't seen any substantial signs of that. Throughout the war, China's tried to play this role of seemingly a neutral player in everything, but still actually backing Russia in many substantial ways, rhetorically, at the United Nations, in various other ways around the world. We haven't got the details of this new peace plan, but we do expect it in many ways to echo what Russia has wanted out of a ceasefire. We do expect there to be a call to stop arms deliveries to Ukraine. That would be something that the Russia would have wanted. And so I think it will be rather difficult for Beijing to convince, especially the West, that it is a neutral broker in this situation.
The timing is interesting, isn't it? Because, I think the skeptics will say it's very difficult to go from a, zero constraints friendship with Russia to be seen as some sort of neutral actor who can broker a peace deal. But why is Beijing doing this? Have the costs of being on one side rather than the other changed?
So we had there was an article published by Bloomberg Opinion yesterday. I love the headline. It said, China is not fighting in Ukraine, but it is losing. And I think that's the situation Beijing finds itself in. Around the world, I think the opinion of China has been degraded by its support of Russia and this war. I think the peace plan is an effort on Beijing's part to try and show that it is trying to do its part to end the conflict. but as we said before, it continues to rhetorically, publicly support Russia, and that is going to be a hurdle in terms of its relationship with the U.S., especially, but also Europe. Important.
And it just goes to show that there's just so many other issues beyond just this balloon that is really weighing on this relationship still, John.
Well, I think President Biden's visit to Kiev this week really underlines how much of a priority Ukraine is for the United States. When we did have that meeting between Wang Yi and Secretary Blinken took the opportunity. Obviously, they spoke about the balloon, but also importantly, he took the opportunity to warn again Beijing not to cross this red line of providing arms to Russia. And so a lot of the relationship, a lot of the tension between the United States and China and all that impacts around the world is based on this conflict in Ukraine.
John, what are the prospects of getting back to the level of optimism that we had in that Bali meeting? Because it does feel, and I think, Yvonne alludes to this, is try as they might, there are myriad issues that stand in the way of Washington and Beijing being able to improve this relationship.
I think it will be very difficult for the two countries to improve the relationship, especially in the short term. I think there's just too much on the table that the two sides need to go through. We are expecting a call between Presidents Biden and Xi. President Biden said he would call Xi Jinping to discuss and try to temper the tensions that have resulted from the balloon incident. But beyond the balloon, beyond Ukraine, we still have potentially a visit by U.S. House Speaker Kevin McCarthy to Taiwan. You'll remember when Nancy Pelosi visited, how much tension, how much of an uproar that causes. So we could expect, again, more turbulence in the relationship going forward.
Yeah, this 4,000 sort of word article from Xinhua blasting the U.S. for military cultural hegemony. I mean, I'm guessing you've read this whole piece, John. What was the biggest takeaway from that?
I will admit I have not read it in its entirety, but I think it is a complaint. It is a complaint that Beijing has voiced several times in the past. Essentially, China feels like it is being constrained by the United States. This containment strategy to stop China's rise economically, politically, militarily. And that is at the core of this dispute between the U.S. and China. Essentially, what sort of China is the United States willing to live with? How powerful of a China? And would China accept that role? Would China accept that a state in the world order that the U.S. is willing to give China?
For more updates, visit News 5, The Philippine Star, and Business World online. Visit our website, onenews.ph, for more in-depth analysis. You can also catch One News on Signal Play. Register for a free account at www.signalplay.com and stream One News live anytime, anywhere. I am Sean Yao. We are One News.